Now, speaking of Trump and his popularity, let's talk about his standing in the Republican primary
Yeah.
because there was a New York Times-Vienna poll, and first thing I want to say is Donald Trump is not out of the race in 2024 against Joe Biden. Not at all. He's currently tied 43-43 against Joe Biden at the national level per this New York Times-Vienna poll, and they're a great polling agency. And specifically, he's gained a little bit with Black Americans and Hispanic Americans and working class Americans, the poor and minorities. How Trump appeals to that, I'll never understand. But the truth is, he is.
Yeah.
And we need to reckon with that. So, but then let's talk about what's going on in the Republican primary. So, in the Republican primary, we have approximately 37% of people in the Republican primary who are Trump will always be Trump and will never step away from Trump. Then you have this 37% of people who are kind of persuadable, can go either way. Some are maybe super pro-Trump right now, but say that they could go DeSantis. Some are super pro-DeSantis, but say that they could go Trump. And then 25% of people say they're not open to Trump at all. 25% of GOP primary voters are not open to Trump. Now, that 25% is kind of what I want to focus on.
Okay.
Because that 25% alone cannot win the primary. But what they can do is swing the general election. And out of those 25% of people who are not going to consider voting Trump in the primary, 29% said that they would vote for Biden
Yeah.
in 2024.
But that's lower. Like, if you're not open to Trump, only 29% of those people would vote for Biden.
Yep.
That's shocking to me.
It is shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's shocking because if you're not open to Trump in the primary, you must see something about him, right?
Yeah.
That makes you distasteful of him.
Sure.
But then you're still going to pick him over Biden. And I think that says a lot. But what this means in a couple of these areas is I want to break down what the margins of victory were in a couple of the swing states. So the ones I'm going to talk about are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. In Arizona, the margin of victory was 10,000 votes. And that was with 9% of Republicans voting for Joe Biden. So that Republican vote towards Joe Biden won him Arizona, flat out, done. Georgia, 11,000 people was the margin. 6% of Republicans voted for Biden. That is the margin. Republicans who voted Biden won Biden, Georgia. And because it's only 6% in Georgia, and this poll is indicating that 8% of people would vote Biden, there's 2% to grow.
Yeah.
Same thing in Michigan. Now in Pennsylvania, same deal. Wisconsin, same deal. These are, I think, like people you need in the Republican coalition to win an election. And I don't know if Trump is capturing them. Can he make up for it with minority and low-income voters? Maybe.
Maybe. And we're also far from the election.
Yeah.
These numbers can totally change.
Yeah, totally.
The other wrinkle that this brings to mind for me, I'm sure you've heard of no labels.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So for those who don't know, there's a party that's considering...
Party. They'll say over and over again, we're not technically a party.
Yeah.
But they're a party.
Movement, party, whatever you want to call it. They have a website. They're a party. They floated the idea of running basically a strictly moderate ticket.
Like a Joe Manchin.
Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, like kind of type deal. Because of the amount of polling that people have said that they don't like either choice, right? Which is very, very common. I think no labels would do nothing to Trump's voter base and would absolutely siphon votes away from Biden.
Totally.
I think no labels is honestly almost a guarantee that Trump wins. So seeing that only 8% of these voters in these polls say that they would vote Biden over Trump really emphasizes that to me and shows that even like no labels just needs to take a sliver of those people.
Yeah, they need to take that. We just said, right? Those 9% Republicans swung Arizona.
Yep.
If they go no labels, back to Republican control in Arizona.
Yeah.
So I think like no labels obviously needs to take a step back. I feel like every election cycle we kind of get that third party idea like it might happen. 2016 was who was the Aleppo guy? Johnson. What is Aleppo?
Was he libertarian?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What was his name? What is Aleppo? That was such a meme.
I'll find it.
Yeah, he was the former governor of New Mexico.
Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
It was Gary Johnson. He was that third party guy. Then in 2020, we had Howard Schultz for a little while, the president of Starbucks. He was running for president as a third party. Now it's like this no labels thing flirting with it. They're going to see if they can get in there. And if they value democracy, you step back if Trump's the nominee, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I think they might almost be motivated in knowing that, yes, there's always a third party thing going on, but we're also told every election this might be the most important election of our lifetimes. So
I mean, that gets told to us over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and even though you and I probably like this is more important than John Kerry versus George Bush in 2004.
Yeah,
this
probably
is more important than Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney in 2012. But they can use that to enter the race nonetheless.
Definitely. And I think No Labels honestly is begging for a Trump nomination because that's when No Labels would do the best.
Sure.
I think No Labels would do the best under a Donald Trump Biden rematch because there are enough voters that they can siphon away from the Trump. I think that they can get those Republicans who voted Biden, like I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's like the best case scenario for a third party candidate.
Exactly.
So I think, but I just think it's interesting that there is, and they go into the makeup of the MAGA base, and the MAGA base is hyper conservative, right? They are the most conservative members of the party. They have college degrees at the lowest percentage. They earn less than $100,000. And it's this weird dynamic of these people who didn't used to be Republicans, people who didn't have a college degree and earn less than $100,000. These were normally Democrat voters. And Democrats still win people who make under $50,000, but they don't win the $50,000 to $90,000 anymore. They've lost the middle class. Democrats win the upper class. No, I'm sorry. Republicans win the upper class, definitely. Democrats win the upper middle class and then the lower class, and Republicans get the lower middle class and the upper class. It's very weird dynamic.
Well, I guess that I would assume the upper middle is kind of the swing.
Upper middle
is
the
swing demographic.
Yeah. But that lower middle used to be Democrat lock almost, and now it's gone. I think that's so interesting how that happened so fast.
How
it happened.
Long has it been?
2004, John Kerry's winning the labor vote, the union vote in Ohio, 60-40. Obama wins the union vote in Ohio in both 08 and 08 and in 12. And then Trump wins it in 16. He wins the union vote in Ohio. And I classify that union vote as that lower middle. That's like the good understanding of like the manufacturing blue collar worker, the labor union guy from Ohio. Okay. And he is swinging to Trump. There's another story I want to talk about briefly about Trump, and then we'll move on.
Sure.
He was in Erie, Pennsylvania recently, giving a speech. And Erie, Pennsylvania is in the northwest of Pennsylvania. It's basically the swing county. It's almost said if you win Erie, you win the state. Trump won it in 2016. He lost it in 2020. So, and it's a big manufacturing hub. And he was in there and he was talking about labor a lot. And he was going off about how he's in favor of like the union and he wants the auto workers union to endorse him. And it's weird that the auto workers union hasn't endorsed Joe Biden yet. It's almost like the latest time in the cycle that they haven't. And Trump is now vying for that. And that's unfortunate because I know that Trump had a terrible record with labor unions.
Oh, yeah?
The Trump administration failed to adequately... The Trump administration attacks workers' wages. Roughly 8.2 million workers who would have benefited from the 2016 overtime rule under Obama was left behind after the Trump administration rejected that rule and got rid of it. The Trump administration's National Labor Relations Board was the most hostile towards workers since the Ronald Reagan era. So I have a hard time understanding why unions would support Trump and how union workers end up supporting Trump. I genuinely have a hard time understanding that.
Yeah.
Because he's an anti-labor guy. The Republican Party is anti-labor.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to like forget that or let that just slip by. Like the Republican Party is anti-union. And if you're in a union, the Republican Party is against your institution. They don't believe in it. They don't believe in collective bargaining.
Yeah.
They think it's breaking the free market.
We're going to go into this more later in our deep dive today, but that's kind of one of the core things that they stand for. It's not collectivizing. Is all individual members of the economy being their own monetary units, kind of.
Exactly. And so I hope that the auto workers union endorses Joe Biden soon.
Yeah, well, it's baffling to me too, because Trump still comes out and being like, "I'm very pro-union."
I know.
Very pro-union. I'm the best president for unions of all time. And like, is that enough? Do they trust him?
But people are buying it. Like, it's almost like, honestly, this is the way I feel. If I'm talking to a union member and I say, like, Trump is really, really bad for unions, like, and these are all the reasons why, he's like, I feel like I would get the response of, that's what they want you to think, that he's bad for unions. Like, that's what they want you to think. Everyone's always telling me that he's bad for unions, but I think he's good for unions, and I'm sick of everyone telling me that he's not. If everyone's telling me that he's not good for unions, he must be good for unions because everyone always lies to me.
Yeah.
That's how I view that dynamic.
Yeah. That's the dynamic a lot with Trump supporters.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
And it's because they've been rejected and denied, not allowed into spaces, feel left behind from our current society.
And they have been lied to.
And they have been lied to.
Have stuff hidden from them and had quote-unquote elites be untransparent with things.
And that is true.
Yeah.
They were lied to with NAFTA, right? NAFTA was supposed to not affect their jobs, and then it did. So why should we trust elites again?
This is a liberal problem
Problem.
Again, we have to keep calling them out. The liberals need to be upfront, transparent.
Yes.